All right, so let's talk a little bit about, before I go ahead and actually pick up my IFR clearance in the air as I make my way to Torrance, let's talk about the difference, or let's compare the two, if you will, between picking up your IFR flight plan in the air to a generic VFR flight following while airborne. The reason I want to compare the two is because before I do it and I show you how it's done, I want to sort of drive the point home that really the difference between how you obtain flight following in the air and how you obtain your IFR clearance in the air is minute, the difference. It's slim to none. The only big difference, really, is that your clearance will be longer, as expected on an IFR clearance. If I'm obtaining an IFR clearance to a destination and that destination is far away from me, in the IFR world, there are specific maybe airways or VORs or waypoints that they want me to track and hit along the way that will make up my route. And so obviously my clearance will be longer. Also, for IFR's sake, if you're either one of my students or you've watched me for a while, what I do say all the time is that if you think of the IFR system as a whole, take a bird's eye view of the IFR system, a lot of it in 2022 doesn't make a whole lot of sense if we're honest. Like if we think about the IFR clearance, the craft clearance that we obtain every time we take off, many of my students, including myself when I was going through instrument, I didn't quite understand, why do we need to waste all this time on the ground, getting a clearance back and forth, writing it down, repeating it back, plugging it in? Why do we need to do all that if at the end of all that we take off and we're told contact departure, and then we do that and departure then tells us what to do until our destination? So I never quite understood why we need to do both. Why just not scratch the entire craft clearance stage, just take off, and when I'm told to contact departure, just give me a departure frequency. When I'm told to contact departure, I'll contact departure, and departure will tell me what to do to my destination and how to get there. And I didn't get that for a very long time, and many people who go through IFR, who are training IFR, it doesn't quite make sense in their head. And what I tell my students, what I tell other people when talking about this, is in order for IFR to make sense in our head, we must think about it from a standpoint of lost comms, lost communication. And the reason is, all these things that we do in the IFR world that seem very redundant, even like a waste of time in 2022, these things were established and put into place years ago, when first of all, the equipment that we flew with and the reliability of the equipment was way lower than it is today. But second of all, the whole point of IFR really isn't to take care of things when everything's working, when you have communication and you're able to talk with ATC. The whole idea of IFR and all of its regulations and lost comms and everything is put into place for the event that things go haywire, and now things are no longer working the way we expect them to. And so what I tell my students, what I tell people is you have to think about IFR from a standpoint of lost comms. So next time something comes up in your IFR training and you ask yourself, well, why do we need this? This is redundant and it's extra. Try and look at it from a standpoint as if you're in the air and you just lost your communication. What would you do? So back to my question before, if we just got a frequency, if we just got a departure frequency and we're told to contact it once we took off, and then we lost comms before we established communication, and now we're in the soup, well, in this case, we wouldn't really know what to do because we didn't have a clearance, we didn't have a flight plan that we filed, we didn't have any assigned heading on departure, and so we'd all be shooting in the dark. And what shooting in the dark results in is it places two people or more than two people on very separate pages. And so the whole point, the goal in a lost comm situation is to place both the pilot and air traffic control on the same page. And the way to do that is to sort of set the ground. Is that me? I think that was me. 2455, 1215 Golf. I thought that was me. Let me just make sure.
Number 15 Golf, contact Josh approach 124.55, good day.
Yeah, approach, good afternoon, station air 1215 Golf, level 8,500.
Now 1215 Golf, Josh Approach, Condo, Timber 2, 996.
906, 1215 Golf. And so the whole goal of Lost Comms is to place the pilot and ATC on the same page. And the way we do that is by laying the groundwork and by establishing expectations and regulations on both ends prior to departure. So in the event that we do lose comms, now we have what to fall on. So if you're familiar with the Lost Comms regulation, it talks about what are you going to do with your altitude, what are you going to do with your heading, with your right-left navigation, your vertical and your lateral navigation, how far along your route you could continue flying, where would you turn to in the event that you lost comms. So all those things are established before we even depart. And now if you lose comms, we have what to fall back on, and we know what to do. And so, and next time something comes up in IFR that doesn't make sense, think of it from a lost comms perspective. And also remember, a lot of this is stuck, back in the 40s, 50s, and things don't change all that quick when it comes to aviation. So keep that in mind as well. Anyhow, the difference between flight following and IFR, really, there's no difference other than what we said. The clearance will be much longer for the reasons that I just mentioned. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. You'll get a beacon code if you don't have one already. I currently have one already. They might give me a new one, but I have one just because I'm currently on VFR flight following. The big thing to look out for and understand is that when you're going from VFR to IFR, when you're going from VFR to IFR while airborne, it's an interesting transition because you're not IFR all the way from takeoff because you're VFR, you took off VFR. And so ATC has the job of sort of transitioning you from VFR to IFR traffic, but you're flying along. And so they will establish expectations and they will tell you, hey, maintain VFR, meaning don't yet fly into a cloud because you're not yet on an IFR flight plan. We haven't yet cleared you and given you the clearance. But what they'll typically do, just to set things off and have you heading in a direction while they take care of stuff on their own, they'll typically give you a waypoint or a place to fly to, meaning to track direct to, at a given altitude while you're maintaining VFR, while they take care of stuff, and then they'll come back to you and say, hey, clearance available, advise ready to copy. So with autopilot, it's easy because you could just devote your attention to writing it all down while you're on your way to that first waypoint. So that's one thing you could expect and sort of stay ahead of the game with in understanding that it's coming to you. So just be prepared for that. In my case, looking at where I'm at, they very well tell me direct Palmdale. So I'm ready for that. But again, they might tell me to go anywhere. So while I'm ready for that, I'm still open-minded in understanding that they could tell me to do anything at any time, and I'll just need to sort of figure it out. But the more I understand how these things work and what obtaining IFR in the air looks like, I could stay ahead of the game, at least mentally, and it makes a big difference when I get on with that. So here we go. We're just about to leave the MOA area over here. And so once I'm around Fox here, I'll get on with them, request my IFR to Torrance, and see what happens. And hopefully it will go as planned. Nothing too crazy, because my goal is to show you a generic, typical picking up your IFR while airborne. So again, right now I'm VFR, I'm currently on flight following just because I flew through this crazy MOA area right over here. But even if I weren't on VFR flight following, the process would be the same. You would contact approach and you would say, hey, I'm such and such from such and such at such and such altitude, and I'm looking to pick up my IFR to Torrance. So here we go. I'll take a sip of water. We should be out of it. We'll make it happen. All right, here we go. And I'll be ready to write things down. And approach for Station Air 1215 Golf. We're about 5 here to the north of Foxfield, looking to pick up our IFR to Torrance. Should be on file.
Roger, standby.
Okay, so now he's going in his own files or whatever he does, and he's looking for the flight plan that I filed before I took off. And he will get it all ready for me, and then he will say, 1215 Golf, clearance available, advise ready to copy. If he's nice, I've seen people just throw it at pilots. And then I'll say, ready to copy, and I'll just copy it all down, and I'll repeat it back to him. And then you'll see how he transitions me from being VFR traffic to being IFR traffic. And from that point on, I'm on an IFR flight plan, and I'm IFR flight rules, and I can fly through IMC, and it's all completely IFR. And so you'll see what that looks like while airborne.
Number 15 Golf Squawk 4634.
4634, 1215 Golf. So they're switching my code, which is what I thought. 463.
Now 15 Golf, you're cleared to Torrance Airport via direct Palmdale. On Victor 201, St. Barry, Victor 459, Seal Beach, direct, and maintain 1000.
All right, cleared to Torrance via direct Palmdale, Victor 201, and then Barry, Victor 459, Seal Beach, and then direct climb, maintain 11,000, 1215 Golf.
And 15 Golf, correction. Let's do direct Solid to go on Victor 201, then rest of the route is unchanged.
Do you mind spelling that for me, 15 Golf?
It's Sierra, Oscar, Lima, Echo, Delta. A little bit shorter route for you.
Roger that, direct to Solid, and then on Victor 201, and proceed on course 1215 Golf. All right, so here we go. 11, I'll add power.
Joshua approach, here's 5 kilo Mike, 10,500.
And 5 kilo Mike, Joshua approach, roger. Palmdale altimeter 2996.
And flight level change, my ceiling is
2996,
raised.
5 kilo Mike.
And I'm going to, let's do 100 knots. There we go. 100 knots, there we are. And now, just like we discussed, he gave me a point to first go direct to and then proceed on course. Now, typically, if he needs some more time to get my clearance, he'll tell me direct there and then he'll give it to me on the way. In our case, he gave it to me right now, direct Solid. So what I'll do is transition or sync the heading bug, go to heading so my plane isn't doing anything. I'm coming into here, I'm deleting this flight plan, I'm cleaning up the system, and now what I'm going to do is en route, I'm going to plug in Solid, and once I'm on course, I'll worry about the rest. So right now, that is Sierra. I asked him to spell it out for me. Oscar. And there's no craziness. You're not going crazy. He understands that you need a second to set things up. The world won't end. I'm plugging it in. I'm taking my time.
Now 15 Golf, give advise when you're direct Solid.
Oh, we'll go 15 Golf. So he told me to advise when I direct Solid. So Sierra, Oscar, Lima, Echo, Delta, enter. I want to highlight it. Direct, enter, enter. There it is. I want to go to nav. Now my plane should turn left. And approach 15 Golf is direct Solid as we speak. There we go.
Joshua approach, King Air
187
Juliet.
Instead of Palmdale, he gave me Solid and then joined Victor 201. So here's what I'll do.
187 Kilo Papa Joshua, roger. Palmdale altimeter is 2996.
From Solid, menu, or
Mission Fox,
menu,
Foxville
load
Airport.
airway to Barry, right? 201 to Barry. Enter, there's Victor 201 to Barry, and then load. And then you can see here as I'm building my flight plan as I'm going. So again, this is as you would do it on the ground, but you're on the fly as you make your way towards a waypoint. All right, here comes 11,000. So right now, after Barry, Victor 459. So I'll do that. Menu, load airway, Victor 459, enter. And my exit point, my off-ramp is Seal Beach. So there it is, enter, load, and you can see what that did. Solid, Victor 201 to Barry, Victor 459 to Seal Beach, and then direct. So I'll scroll all the way to destination, and I'll plug in K, T, O, A. Enter, none, and as you guys can tell, I zoom way out, bird's eye view, and I see I'm going all the way to Torrance. Back there, I'm going one step at a time, so I'm direct Solid, and then from Solid, join Victor 201 to Barry. Indeed, that's my clearance, and then from Barry, Victor 459 to Seal Beach. That checks, and then direct destination, right over there, Torrance. I'm happy. I did my double verification on my IFR flight plan. I am coming up on 11,000 feet, and right now, I am on an IFR flight plan. I'm IFR traffic. As expected, he gave me a new beacon code, and that's that. I'll go ahead and cruise out here. We are at 11,000 feet. There we are. There's 23. And we'll lean way out.
Number 7 Kilo Papa, clear direct Daggett, contact LA Center 132.5.
Okay, 132.5 and direct Daggett, 7 Juliet Papa.
And there we go. We're all good to go. And we're on course. There we have it. Our flight plan shows 31 minutes left to our flight. I hope that makes sense. I hope that wasn't too crazy. I hope you were able to follow along. I did my best to sort of take care of that, communicate with him while explaining things to you guys. But really, there's nothing too crazy. For those of you who are used to picking up VFR flight following in the air, very, very, very similar. Get on with approach, get a beacon code, and he'll give you your clearance. You'll copy it, you'll repeat it back just like you do on the ground. Two big things I want to stress and drive home that I see as big, big common errors when my students do pick up IFR flight plans in the air. The biggest thing is when you are in the air, you're probably already most likely on your own flight plan, whether it's direct destination or your made-up for-flight little route. So your plane is most likely tracking a course, meaning you're most likely in nav mode already. What happens is when people plug in that first initial waypoint to head to, as they make their way now on their IFR flight plan, they don't sync and switch to heading mode while they fiddle with the avionics. And what happens more often than not is people do that and then they plug in the wrong waypoint. Maybe they get a letter wrong, or they think the name
Joshua jet speed 221, 12,000.
Or they think the name of the waypoint is something else. And then they do direct enter, and the airplane starts turning because we're in nav mode,
At 8,000 jet speed 2.
and we're on our way to a completely different place than we want to be. And so the best thing you could do when you're picking up IFR in the air is, while you're fiddling with the avionics, plugging your instructions, your clearance into the system, the best favor you could do yourself is sync the heading bug and transition to heading mode, just like that. I'm on heading mode right now. The plane will continue doing what it was doing before, but now I could do whatever I want to do with the avionics, and the plane won't run away from me. I'll just go back to GPS right there. That's the first thing. The second thing that I want to stress when you pick up your IFR in the air is you will get a whole list of whole clearance here that gets you all the way to your destination. And many people start thinking too much about this and start figuring out, how am I going to this, how am I going to that. The biggest thing you could do, and you saw he even prompted me to let him know when I'm on course to Solid. The biggest thing you could do when it comes to these things is, the first priority of yours should be, get moving in the direction of your first waypoint. Once you're on the way there, you typically have 10, 15 miles until you get to your first waypoint. Do all of your thinking and all of your fiddling as you're moving towards your first waypoint, not along the heading or the course that you were on when you initially called approach. So I hope that makes sense, because the sooner you can proceed on course, remember, they don't know. I could have nothing plugged in past Solid right now, and he wouldn't know it, nor would he care. All he cares is that I turn right here on Victor 201 when I reach Solid. So I have all this time until I reach Solid.
Golf contact SoCal approach 124.6.
24-6, thanks for your help, 115 Golf.
Yep.
And now I'm on an IFR flight plan. And approach, good afternoon, station air 1215 Golf, level 11,000.
Station air 1215 Golf, still approach Burbank, altimeter 2991.
2991, 1215 Golf. And so, the two big things I'll say about the IFR, picking up IFR in the air, is the first thing is when you fiddle with the avionics, sync the heading bug, go to heading mode, the plane won't run away from you. The second biggest thing is, make it a priority to, as soon and quickly as possible,
miles, flighting 070.
get moving and tracking in the direction of your first waypoint. On the way there, load up the rest, think about things, and so on and so forth. And that's all there is to it. So I hope you guys learned something, and I hope if you were intimidated by picking up IFR in the air, there's nothing to it. These approach controllers are nothing but nice, And if you need something repeated, like I did, not repeated, but I asked him to spell solid for me.
3420, took a departure at a contact, climb and maintain.
And the reason I asked him to spell is because I don't want to spend back and forth with him trying to plug it in and seeing it's the wrong one. I just rather off the bat say, hey, please spell it for me. And he said S-O or Sierra Oscar Lima Echo Delta. And so if he gives you a waypoint, just say, hey, could you spell it for me? He'll spell it for you, and then you'll plug that in. And that's all there is to it. That is how we obtain our IFR clearance while airborne. Not much to it.